Hello, I am Augusta Wind. This is Into the Toad. Today, I'm going to talk about mind, body, spirit. It's pretty universally acknowledged that these three things make us up. Not universally, I guess there's an entire segment of humanity that thinks there is no spirit. There's no atheists in the toad medicine. So while I have been on that side of the fence, I think in my darkest days, I saw no evidence of anything beyond just this physical world and this construct of society with all of its entanglements. But the first thing the medicine showed me was the spirit world, was my own self. People, the phrase finding yourself, it's so jaded and bastardized now. It's a punchline. And it's aggressively denounced. I don't know why that is, but I can tell you in my experience that just a glimpse of what we are is enough to change your outlook on that forever. Mind, body, spirit all work together to express us in whatever this is, this place. And we have, I think most people would say the mind is the thinking self, what Alan Watts would call the servant mind, what others might call the lower self, likening it to a radar that's just scanning constantly, looking for something, for anything that it might need to respond to. And that's just one small piece of us, but it consumes us. The thoughts and the words, the ideas, the concepts, the anticipation, the expectation, the guilt, the shame, the remorse. This is all in the mind. And for the purpose of this talk, let's just categorize the mind as that, although we can look at it as a lower mind and a higher mind. To keep it simple, I think it's easier just to call the mind that conscious attention, those words, those thoughts, that noise that you hear constantly. That's the mind. What we would call the higher mind, that's going to be the spirit. Anything outside of this conscious attention encompasses the spirit and the physical body. In my childhood, I had levels of happiness that were astounding. I can remember the contentment. I can clearly remember a day, I think it was my mother driving me to nursery school, and it would have been the first time I was being taken somewhere and left somewhere, and there was no seatbelts in those days. There was no safety features on the planet at all for the humans. But so we had this big giant Chevy Impala, and the back of it, between the back windshield and the ledge that formed the back of the seat, was a huge space. And as a little toddler, I would climb up in there and lay flat on that shelf, looking out at the glass and touching it, and the world just floating by. And it was an autumn day, and leaves were falling from the trees. And I grew up in the country, just surrounded by fields, but coming into town for a school or anything else, had the narrower streets and the narrower buildings and the congestion, which it looked like congestion to me, but if I looked at it today, I would still say it was probably rural, but it was a contrast from the little world that I knew. And it was all welcome. It was different, but it was just something. It didn't matter. I think it really could have been anything as long as it didn't cause me pain at that point in my life and in my consciousness. It just flowed. Everything just flowed past me. And there would be peaks of excitement and pleasure with snack time. We would get carrots and celery. And I was ecstatic. And my body shook at the excitement of, oh my gosh, we're going to get carrots and celery. That anticipation for the simplest pleasures. I still have that. I lost it and regained it, but I have that today, and I'm grateful for it. And it comes from my experiences, but it mostly comes from my mother, who on her deathbed, one of the last things she asked for was a glass of ice water. And some of her last words were just how delicious the water was and how refreshing, and just, she was so grateful to have it. That's me. That's happiness. That's inner peace. That's harmony with the mind, body, and spirit. Mind and the body will both fail in short order. The length of our lives, it's so funny. We can look at them as long, or we can look at them as incredibly short. And both statements are true. There's so much happening in our lives. We evolve into these other creatures. If we can look at someone and what they are when they're born, and what they are in old age as they lay down for the last time and take their last breath. What have they become? What is that evolution? And it's so easy to say, to attach good and bad to that. Oh, they became physically fragile, inflexible, brittle, mentally, maybe the same. Maybe inflexibility, I think that's a natural progression in the transition into something else, into getting older and into death. You see it in nature everywhere. But with the mind, it doesn't have to be. I think it's the natural flow, and we'll see a lot of disgruntled, skeptical, jaded, impatient, unhappy, dissatisfied older people. I think it's easy to fall into that. It is in no way necessary. It is not predetermined. It is not required. And it's a choice. In doing the combo medicine recently and meeting the man who lives among the tribes in the Amazon. He's been there for 30 years. He is now the medicine man for several tribes. He administers all their medicines. And he's a wonderful man and just full of love and joy. And it's hard to tell how old he is. There's no worry lines on his face. There's no rigidity in his body. He's not young, but if he was wearing some kind of costume, you wouldn't be able to tell that he wasn't young with his movements. And he says that the elders in the tribes, these are primitive tribes, they only connection that any of them have with our modern society is administering medicine. And sometimes these tribes are doing that to make money. The forests are being taken, their land is being taken, infrastructure is being built, and they find themselves on the border of us without many options. And in situations like the one I'm talking about, there's people like Tapu who believe in the medicine and administer the medicine, and he travels the globe taking the medicine and his extended family with him. It's a convoy of I was going to say happiness, but it's it's earned happiness. With Kambo, you got to show up, just like with all natural medicine, with real medicine. You're going to participate in this experience, whether you want to or not. And especially for Kambo, what you bring is what you get. I think it's probably true with the toad, which is harder to. It's hard to understand and explain, and there's no preparing for it. There's no words. But there is an evolution. I can see in myself that the medicine is different for me now than it was in the beginning. It is in no way easier. In fact, I think it becomes more difficult, which is saying something. So I don't know what I'm bringing, but I think just continuing to show up is all the mind, body, and spirit really need to do. And that's driven by the spirit forcing the mind and body to walk up the hill and take the medicine. There's a lot of friction for me in doing that. I commit to it, and when I do commit, I show up, but there's weeks or months of I don't want to do it. You don't know what's coming. You're going into the void. It's always rewarding. It's always what you need, and it is the essence of life. Vitality and pleasure. Appreciation, gratitude. It's everything. Whereas with the Kambo, Tapu calls it a lucid medicine. So you're not going into the spirit realm. You're there the whole time. In fact, you're probably a little more there than you normally are. Everything's heightened because you are entering a battle, and the medicine is going to ask you. I'm going to talk about this in this way. It seems a little wooey, but there is a relationship between the person and the medicine. There is a conversation without words. It's a dynamic there. And that's how it works. Because you are the medicine. You are the solution. You are the thing that you need. You are a factory of chemicals and hormones and energy. It's all you. The medicines, from what I understand, remind you of that. So the Kambo, it says, I'm going to drag you through hell, and you're going to tell me what you want. And if you really want that, whatever it is, I think for most of it, it's just energy. If energy solves, it's kind of like my dad used to say with business, revenue solves all problems. You can get through things if there's money coming in. You can figure it out. If you have energy flowing through you, you can handle anything that life throws at you. It's what we are. And it's why the older people gravitate toward the youth, why we admire the youth and the athletes and the sports and the beauty. That's pure energy. It's still flowing. And it's great to be around. Having the energy and the maturity, the wisdom that age provides, that's my goal. That's what I'm after. Because having both it's just pure bliss. So the combo you will find out what you really want. When I did it, there was a man there battling cocaine addiction. And he was one of these guys that just, the drugs suited him. You could just tell. He wasn't a young man, but that drug really rips people apart physically and mentally. And this guy was still strong, still active, running his own business, just physically fit. And his outlook was positive. But this drug that he still loved was getting in the way of his relationship with his son. So he decided to leap into the void and take this weird medicine out in the woods. The man comes up from the jungle and see if it could help him. And what he wanted was a stronger relationship with his boy, and what he needed was to get away from the drugs to facilitate that. And kind of sadly, I watched him not want that anymore. After 3 days in, he even said, it's too hard. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't think he heard himself saying it. But for me, I just saw him saying, I don't want a relationship with my son this much. And that's the kind of truths that the medicines give you. It's not all just rainbows and joy, although that's what I'll talk about the most, because that's me. I am joy. If everything else is stripped down, if I cannot hold on to any of my concepts and constructs, and I am just deflated, stripped to the bone, which has happened, there's nothing left. I can't even die anymore. It's just raw emptiness. I laugh. I cry to get there. I struggle with the fear and the turmoil and the violence and the intensity of these experiences that's why it's hard. But the result, in my last experience with the toad, to stand, I came to and I was standing up. That had never happened before. Usually I'm rolling around on the ground, got dirt in my mouth and just spit coming out of my nose and my mouth and heaving and purging and just struggling to understand what's happening. And then I start to breathe. I see Eric. He brings me back. I look in his eyes, and the world starts to coalesce around his face, and I know I'm okay. And then I realize I'm better than okay. It's fresh. It's brand new. I'm reset. Everything that was piling up is gone because it served no purpose. The worry, the fear, the guilt, the shame, it's all noise. There is no use for any of it, ever. So, and you can't have it in the medicine. If you want to go in, you have to let go. And that is not a concept that I can explain or that's something you can go home and do tonight. It does not work that way. Letting go is another phrase, like finding yourself, that carries no weight in the language. It does not have anything to do with the reality of what it's trying to describe. It's like the word water. What is water? You have this sound that we make. Water is everything. Water is this magic substance that does all these amazing things and fosters life itself. So you can make a sound with your mouth and point to it if you want. But the less you do that, the better. Just water is. Forget the sounds. Forget these phrases. Finding yourself. Letting go. Surrendering. These phrases are powerful to me because I've lived them. They carried no significance to me before I lived those experiences. Letting go is not this peaceful moment where you achieve enlightenment and just decide, oh, I'm not going to worry. It is physiological. It's at the cellular level of healing. It's violent. It's scary. And the intensity is unlike anything else you can experience as a human being. That's the medicine. That's what it is. And that's why that word, that sound, should not be applied to anything else. You go to the doctor and get a prescription. It's not medicine. It's a drug designed to not kill you and to maybe give you some positive side effects. That's it. And there's no guarantee it's not going to kill you. And how it's going to mix with everything else that you're taking that they told you needed, nobody knows that either. The whole system is a rickety construct of greed. There's some humanity in it. There's some people in it trying to do good. But you might as well scream at a waterfall. It ain't going to work. Our whole position on health and healing and vitality is distorted beyond recognition. And I say this with confidence because when you feel the healing from the toad, you know. You don't have to think about it anymore. You don't have to talk about it. You know what it is. You know how it feels. You know the sensation of healing, of pure energy, which is what healing is trying to accomplish, in my opinion, is just to remove the barriers to the energy. I came out one time in such bliss, and I said to Eric, it's this energy flowing through me. I could feel it like a raging river of peace and contentment and this subcurrent of invincibility. Like I could reach over and pull the tree out of the ground with my hand if I wanted to. I didn't need to. I wasn't tense, but all that power was right there under the surface. And in the meantime, I was just blissfully floating in silence, just hearing my breath. And I said so to Eric, and he said, it's always there, Jason. You're the one getting in the way. This is what life is this constant flow of peace and love and joy and contentment with power underneath it and a conscious attention, like a radar dish just rotating, looking for anything that we need to deal with. Yes, there's terrible things, there's violence, there's disease, all these things exist. But when they're not existing with you right now, you should be in blissful state. There's no need to be anywhere else. If you're not, you're the one preventing it. That's what the medicines are about. That's why when the combo, it took me 3 days of doing it to understand it enough to utilize it, even though Tapu and all the volunteers, it was an incredible experience. All these people, a lot of healthy, strong people, devotees of this medicine, helping, just volunteering. And they would all say the same thing, is you got to drink as much water as you can. You have to keep doing that. That's the only thing that you have to do. And that's how the medicine works. That is what it needs. And that's what you're going to need to get through the storm that's going to put you in, because it's going to be unpleasant. And unpleasant is, I wish we had a better word for what it is, because that don't cut it. It's probably the worst I've felt in my entire life, and I've had some pain and suffering in my life. We all do. But this, when the combo comes on, It knocks you out. You want to give up. All you want to do is give up. That's the only urge you have, is to give up. Which is funny because in the toad, it's like the opposite. Is you're supposed to give up, and you can't. You can't let go. It keeps ripping away from you your identity, what you think is real, what you think is actually happening, what you think is important, what you think is possible. All these things that you're holding on to, the toad won't let you hold on to them. You want to hold on, but you can't. And in the combo, you just want to give up, but you can't, because if you let yourself give up at all, you'll just collapse into a puddle on the floor. And you'll wake up with the medicine not having worked, and maybe you wake up still feeling sick. I don't know. It was a concern. It was a fear that, well, first of all, I did this. I paid money. I traveled. I showed up. I'm there to get something. I am not going to take the easy way out on this, even though that might be appealing at the time. I know myself enough, and I know this medicinal experience, this natural medicinal experience is enough to go after it. That's how you get it. My friend Chad, who is Eric's helper with the toad medicine when we do it in Colorado, says that you get to a point with the toad where you take the medicine. That's different than just showing up. Like I was saying earlier, all you got to do is walk up the hill. That there's truth to that. But for him, and he's much deeper into it than myself, he said there's a point where you take it. And that's the concept I'm talking about with the combo too. You're going to suffer. You're by yourself for the most part in this. These medicines are inside you. It's a solo experience. You can dress it up. You can have people around you if you want. There's songs that people sing around you. They try to bring the energy to help you with this fight. But it's your fight. And Tapu says that in the beginning. He says, I don't know what a shaman is. He's like, I know the word, but I don't know what it is. I'm not one, and I've never met one, and I've been living with the tribes in the Amazon for 30 years, and they don't know what a shaman is either. He said, there's nothing to do with me with the medicine. I'm just bringing it. But the medicine is you and it. That's it. So what it becomes with the combo is a mind-body fight for the spirit, whereas the toad is a spirit fight for the mind-body, which is really exciting to have both of these in my life. The participatory nature of real medicine is why it works. You can't get your help and your healing from other people and from other things. The medicine is external of you, but it is in you, and you are the experience. The toad is chemically is 5-MeO-DMT. That's the compound of this substance, from what I understand. And from what I understand, the body can manufacture that. In fact, it does. When a baby's born, their brain is flooded with 5-MeO-DMT, and when people die, it happens again. It's a transition chemical. It's us. And I've come to believe that my scariest moments in the medicine, and I will continue to have them, are me. Eric said to me one time when I was coming out, I could barely function. I was so destroyed and so uncertain. These are really positive things. They sound negative when I'm saying them, and they felt a little negative. Well, they felt very negative then, but they're necessary. It's part of the letting go, is realizing why you need to let go. is because there's nothing to hold on to. I think coming out of these things a lot of times is just a glimpse of what's possible. And I saw it even in the combo, which is it's a lucid medicine. You're not hallucinating. Your mind is, your mind is on fire. You want to escape. You want to give up. You want to die. The feelings that the medicine gives you, and it comes on quick. They burn little holes in your skin and put the medicine in there. I don't know why it's done that way. It's been done that way a long time. And when I met Tapu, I used my own judgment in these things. I had a friend refer me to the experience, whom I trust with my life, and then evaluate when I get there myself on who this person is. There's always one person in charge of the experience, and Tapu it was 5 seconds. I knew, okay, this guy's real. And that's just how they administer it. And when you're sitting in a line, you're on a chair and you have a bucket in one hand and a glass of water in the other. And your job is to empty the glass of water and fill the bucket. As soon as you throw up, fill the bucket, then they empty it for you. And they sing while this is all going on. It's a relatively short experience, maybe 20, 30 minutes probably. But as soon as I'm sitting next to the person at the front of the line and Tapu comes and burns the holes in your skin and asks you some questions, I think he's gauging maybe how much medicine to administer or what he should expect from your experience, and he's sizing people up. So you'll hear people say why they're, I'm a cocaine addict. I'm in a lot of pain. I'm dying of cancer. I just lost my mother. I'm going through a divorce. Whatever it is, people are battling. And what I love about these experiences in the natural medicine is that they show up. They're all my friends. I don't care what they are out in polite society. It's hard to judge a human in our world trying to survive, trying to navigate all these written and secret rules and regulations and all these adopted normalities. You can turn into a monster, and you're not a monster, but you don't know how to handle this. I feel like an alien most of the time myself. Most of my time is spent with a small circle of people who I trust with everything, because I can talk about this. They understand this. Most of them, all really, with the exception of maybe one, knows the toad. And that is a common denominator on which to build a relationship. If you both know that there's nothing to hold on to because it's all an illusion, the conversation can flow from there. There's not much stress or pressure because nothing exists except this, the right now. This right now, for me, looks different than it used to. And I was thinking, this is the mind, body, spirit. I don't know if it's progressing, or I don't want to put any value on it, but I'm changing. My view of the world is changing. My view of myself, my view of death, my view of everything around me is changing. I think a lot of my fear going into the medicine used to be, which I didn't know it at the time, but it was, I didn't know what I was going to come back to. It wasn't so much of where I'm going, but what I'm going to be when I return was a big fear. And it wasn't really my fear. That's the mind. The hardest part about opening up to what actually is all the constraints that you build yourself. This mind doesn't want to relinquish control. It doesn't want to acknowledge the truth that it provides very little value to you. It has a role. It has usurped other roles. You've allowed that to happen. And even today, if I was taking the medicine today and I was having panic attacks, then that means something is about to be destroyed in me. And that's a difficult walk all the way up the hill, trying to get comfortable, trying to control your breathing, staring into Eric's eyes, and just seeing yourself. He's not giving anything, which is why it's so powerful. He's not going to tell you, you're going to be okay. There is none of that. He doesn't know what's going to happen. All he knows is the medicine works and you get what you need. And he knows that with a certainty. It might be the only thing he knows, but the way he knows it, it's a faith. And faith isn't even strong enough. The fear of something in me dying, to face it requires a faith in what's going to be left behind, into the whole process itself, into the fact that if something can be dropped or changed, it isn't important. It doesn't need to be there. There's nothing fragile about you that you need to protect and hold on to. That's all a myth. What you are is immovable, invincible, immortal. That's the only thing you really are. Everything else, you're dressing up the way you want it, or the way you're told to want it, or this convoluted evolution of just trying to survive in our world. And it just turns into this big, tangled mess. That's what you're letting go of. That's what's keeping me from going up that hill saying, no, no, no. You're experiencing fear. You're experiencing panic. You're experiencing death. You're going to go die. And you're not ready for that. You have to walk through all that. And the better you can maintain your poise, it's probably going to be not an easier, well, maybe an easier experience. Because I've had it both ways. I've had it where I stand with Eric and we just stand there in silence and he looks around at nature around us and he just says, this feels good. And then he lights it and starts singing. And then nuclear bomb. But easier to manage. More harmony than the days when I'm crawling up the hill, crying, shaking, cold sweats. I can't do this. I don't understand it. Carrying all that in, it's a long day. But there's no other, it's not a bad thing. It has to be done. It's necessary. The mind has to learn its place. It's not going to be a conversation. These forces at work do not care about your language. And the tentacles with which they hold you are titanium. The force required to put the mind in its place is like standing, what I would imagine standing at ground zero of a nuclear explosion. That's the amount of energy that you're going to experience. It's going to rip things back to where they need to be. And everything can settle in its place temporarily, briefly, just long enough for you to take a couple breaths and say, oh, this is what I am. This is it. Mind, body, spirit in harmony. Just a flow of pleasure and serenity and poise and awareness. Watch an eagle perched on a branch. Does it look bored? Does it look worried? It's the animal kingdom is showing us all the time what it is. From the smallest to the largest creatures. The courage, I would say integrity, the character, the strength that they display, knowing that they're going to suffer what we would consider the worst death. They're all going to get eaten alive, usually slowly, in some kind of circus fashion, with a pack of hungry whatever. That's their demise. That's where they're headed. That's why they're on alert. Doesn't mean they can't relax. They can relax much better than most of us can. Once the mind, body, and spirit sit in the right seats, everything's possible. To be refreshed, to be relaxed, to be exhausted, to be energetic when you wake up, to be ready without any substances, all these gadgets and toys and tools that we use, the caffeine and the nicotine and a lot of the food and these routines that we have, it's all window dressing. It's all just tangled up, messy nonsense. When you're given clarity into what mind, body, and spirit are and the relationship to each other, there's nothing to do. There's nothing to say, and there's nowhere to go. The concept of urgency, boredom, creaky bones, being uncomfortable, having shallow breathing, sitting in some kind of malformed posture. This is where most of us live all the time. And it's only existing because of the imbalance in the mind, body, spirit. It's harmonious. It's perfection. It doesn't mean you don't have to do anything. It's our birthright to feel this. And it's our responsibility to seek it out, especially if we're complaining about our lives. If you're unhappy and you're miserable and you're not helpful and loving to the people who you care about, step up. My gosh. Nothing's going to change with what you're doing. The therapist is going to come up with a great new medicine to fix your problems. You're not going to get to this place with talk therapy and pharmaceuticals. It is not going to happen. You may find some kind of level of harmony that gets you through your life, and that's fine. I'm talking to the people who are fundamentally unhappy, miserable. They see no point in life, no value in it. The only reason they're here is because they got to take care of their kids. Those kinds of living the dream type misery. That's who this is for. If you want it, it's like the combo will ask you, what do you want? Well, I can tell you what I wanted. I wanted my energy back. That's what I want. I know what it feels like. I want it here all the time. That's why I'm showing up. And sitting down, he puts the medicine on the girl next to me, and as soon as he touches her leg, the women get it on the legs and the men on their arms. I don't know the difference of why, but that's how they do it. As soon as he touched her leg, she started puking into the bucket, just gallons. It was like as soon as he touched her. And the timing of these things, like the toad, as soon as you start inhaling, you're going into the medicine. It's nothing is supposed to work that quickly. I don't know if they can explain it physiologically. You're inhaling. And most of the time now, as I'm inhaling, I disappear. I never hold my breath, exhale. None of that happens. I start to inhale and I'm gone. I don't know what happens afterward. I've seen close friends of mine, we watch each other, and it's really interesting, like my friend Becker, who fearful the dude is not. He goes into the deep end on everything he does. I love that guy. And he's the one who got me into the medicine in the first place, and he's just this courageous, yet humble, soft-spoken man. So when he goes in, he goes in. And I watched him go in, and as he inhaled it, and then he fell back, and he started rolling around and getting up on all fours and freaking out, crying out. What is happening to me? No, no, no. Panicked, screaming. And even though we had been doing this a long time, I had never seen this response from him. Eric wasn't bothered at all, barely acknowledged it was happening. But I thought, oh my gosh, maybe Becker's into the fear. Maybe something's wrong. Like, I don't know. I don't know anything. But this is not in his character. And then when he finally came out at the end, we had a little picnic there on the mat. Just a magical memory. Magical. Me, Becker, Chad, and Eric having snacks on the prayer mat after the two of us had just gone, and those guys were working their day, just taking people through it, but they took a little break with us. I can die because of those moments. That's how much joy and love is in these experiences and in the people who have made it part of their lives. But after, we started talking about it, and I was waiting for Becker to tell me that it was troublesome and violent and frightening. And there was none of that. He said it was just pure bliss. He said he went in. He could hardly explain where he was, of course, but he was in deep. And I told him what I saw, and he just laughed. He said, "Really?" And we started to figure out, like, that is the mind. It's holding on so tightly, and he just let it panic. He just left it behind and dove in. But it's still there. It's still controlling the body. It's still active. It's still holding on. And holding on, it's such the phrase doesn't do justice. It might as well be bolted on, welded, affixed. But it will become accustomed to its rightful position on the rudder, doing what it's told. Listen, taking orders from the captain. The Spirit is your captain. Oh, captain, my captain. Whitman knew. I am large, I contain multitudes. This guy knew. All great art comes from this experience. All of it. There is only this. And we're so fortunate to have this medicine available to us. Nobody knows the history of it. It's so fun to imagine where it was discovered, when it was used, what types of societies had it as part of their culture, and in what way. we do know that, like a lot of the natural medicines, we probably learned it from the animal kingdom. The hummingbird showed us tobacco. The hummingbird is a dominant fixture in Native American, North, Central, and South cultures. And the story goes that the hummingbird showed us the first medicine, which was tobacco, which is still used in a lot of medicines, a lot of ceremonies, although it's rarely inhaled. There are some that, like the ayahuasca ceremonies, I think if you go to become the administrator of that medicine, you go through a whole tobacco, smoke it all day long, all night long, inhaling, not stopping. Like there's something about you have to get over its toxicity or its power or something like that. I don't understand too much of it, but that's what I have heard. And for the ayahuasca itself, there is a YouTube video of a jaguar eating the vine and tripping balls. And apparently their digestion allows them to get the medicine just from eating the plant, whereas for us it has to be mixed with other plants and into a concoction that you drink then. I have not done ayahuasca. I really don't have any desire to experiment with any medicines anymore. The toad is the medicine, in my opinion. Everything else is just giving you some semblance of the toad. And I know that because in me, if I would take just a small dose of some psychedelics now just for recreation or even cannabis, when things become intense, that's where I go. I'm not going into anywhere else. There is no other place to go except the toad. Because it's the truth, because it's real. And we have access to it where a little bit of money, maybe a little bit of travel, and you get to experience this. Whereas there was cultures, well, we think the toad was discovered because Eric has seen dogs out in the desert grabbing the Sonoran desert toads and rubbing their muzzles up against them until they start to trip and just spasm on the ground, on their backs, just rolling around, frothing at the mouth. They seek it out. So it makes sense that a tribe would see that happen and say, there's something in this toad. What is it? How do we get to it? Human curiosity is the driver of all good things and bad things. It's the driver of all things. It's a wonderful character trait that we have. And it's limited only by fear and other false limitations that we impose on ourselves. We can be discovering all the secrets to everything right now. There's nothing stopping us from solving all the big mysteries that need to be solved, including death. That's what the medicine's showing us. It's right here. It's available. It's not owned by some power structure that only gives it to the high priest on one night a year or whatever, that writes books about it in a language no one understands and just tells you, bow down here and give me 10% of your revenue. Like that. It's not that thing. It's something else. It's something real. And it's hard to, the community structure of religion is extremely important. And there's a lot of good, loving things that happen through it. But if you want to get down to the brass tacks of it, why they claim to have power, all the churches, all the religions, all the holy books, they're all saying the same thing. And they all want the same thing. They all want continuous power. And when you experience the toad, you come out more understanding what Jesus was talking about than what the rabbi or the cardinal or the pope is talking about. You get the source of it, and everything else just becomes it's just a game. You can't take it seriously. You can still show up at your church and help your community and pray and all these things. It doesn't change you in any way that's negative. Which is funny because, like I was saying, I think early on, a lot of my fear and resistance was not understanding what was going to change in me. Or that part of me just fighting the change. It knew it was going to be annihilated. That is what happens. You come out of it free from those shackles. So the shackles have a mind of their own. They don't want to be removed. But if you can stand up to all that over and over and over and over again, it's probably a lifelong pursuit here. It's baby steps for me, which I'm proud of. I don't know if it could be any other way. I don't really care. It doesn't matter. And I don't really care if other people follow suit and find peace and happiness. Like, it's outside of me. I just want to say that it's possible. It's available. How many cultures, how many time periods in human history have the opportunity we have right now? We know the Mayans had the toad medicine. The Mayans were obsessed with death. A really good way to understand this is they had a sport, kind of like soccer or football, whatever. And it was important. You know, it's just like it is today. It's a big deal. And they would have these matches, and the victors of the tournaments, the ones who won everything, they were sacrificed. That was your trophy, is society killed you ceremonially in front of everybody. That's what they fought for. That should convey a little bit of an idea of what death actually is when it becomes part of society. I even think the Romans had, I don't know anything. I know they had psychedelics. We know that the Delphi Oracle, maybe, I think they found mushrooms or mescaline or something in an old cup. So there was some medicine being used. I don't know if they had the toad. I have no idea. There is evidence that China had the toad. And that the Mayan language and the Chinese languages are very similar. And we all know, we should know at this point, that we don't understand previous trade routes, primitive trade. We don't understand who was taking things where. But it's much more complex than what we imagine. Just like we're always looking back in history and thinking that they didn't have this, they didn't have that. We always look down on them. We have no respect for our ancestors at all, which is such a shortcoming to think of all the knowledge that's lost, all the wisdom, all the potential for peace and happiness, just gone. If a society had tapped into some kind of harmony and balance with nature and with themselves, we wiped them out. They were the easiest one. It's like Columbus on his first letter back to Spain when he landed in the Caribbean. It's like, these people are so sweet and wholesome and loving. We can do whatever we want with them. That's our mentality. That's us. And it's about time that we acknowledge that, instead of pointing at the Nazis as the bad guys. We're the bad guys. Nazis are bad guys. They're terrible. We beat them. We're worse. There's a book called Sapiens where they discuss all the other kinds of humans that have been around that we have evidence of. You know, I was always taught that we're just humans and we evolved from apes or whatever, evolution. It's just all hazy, right? When did we do it? Well, there was Lucy. She was 4 million years old, and she was part of an ape, but she was also kind of a human. Okay, I guess, whatever. Not a lot of evidence there. But apparently there's evidence of all different types of human species. Homo sapiens is what we are. There was a lot of different ones. And guess what? They're all gone. Well, why is that? I mean, come on. let's own up to what we are, because all these secret thoughts and desires you have inside you and this boiling rage and anger that bubbles over sometimes, that's us. We are wild beasts. And our biggest failure is a lack of awareness. Let's own up to how selfish and violent and aggressive we actually are and start the conversation there. The hypocrisy is nauseating. And it's all an imbalance of the mind, body, spirit. Put the mind in its place. The spirit rules all. You don't need to think. How many times do you do something in your world where you're distracted by something else, but you do it perfectly anyway? Complex things. Like, we are so capable and so quick. And an individual, if you looked at us, you zoom out and look at us as a species, wow, how industrious these things are. Look what they're building. Look how fast they move. My gosh. Look at the planet Earth 100 years ago versus today. Any alien species would be like, wow, what are these guys up to? Grab one of these humans out and pull them aside and start asking them, and you find out that they're insecure, fragile, afraid, confused, because they're letting the mind answer those questions. There's nothing to be confused about. The great example of this is people, when Buddha revealed himself, and the story I heard is people came to him and he told them that desire was suffering. Your suffering is from your wanting. You want these things, and that's creating your suffering. So they went back to stop desiring. And they came back again, and he said, well, now you're desiring not to desire. Right? How do you let go? Well, the answer is that none of it exists. There is no you to desire in that sense. There is only the higher self you, that it needs nothing. It will never need anything, and it cannot be killed. It's chill. But you're trying to answer this with the mind. And Buddha's trying to say that doesn't even exist. That's how weak the mind is. It's a contradiction. It's weak, but it's so strong. To let go of it, you have to die. I don't mean you have to kind of let yourself go and accept death, although that kind of is the point. You can't, because you want to survive, and that's hardwired. That's mind, body, and spirit. Everything agrees on one point, and that is we are going to survive this. So the letting go is death. That's the only thing that's going to put the mind in its place, and that's why this whole thing is so difficult. You have to face your biggest fear in a way that's if you're sitting on the couch and you're just thinking about, I can do that. Well, it gets exponentially harder the closer you get to the medicine. And like I said, I've had moments where I had to drag myself onto that mat, sobbing, crying, snot coming out of my nose. I don't know if I'm a brave man, relatively speaking. I don't give a shit. But that's what it was for me. That's real. And the reward is this harmony and balance and Availability for pleasure. This acceptance of what is. This acceptance goes hand in hand with the letting go, the walking to your death. Because as you do that, there may be measures of it. Deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. It's not just a snap your fingers type thing. And the thing that might hold you back from finally getting to where you need to get to is your faith. And I'm not talking about some man in a robe sitting you down and saying, sign here if you believe what I'm telling you about God and the devil. Like, there's nothing in language that's relevant here. There's nothing in your mind that's relevant here. Do you believe in the force of life? Do you believe that what you are part of right now is real and it's bigger than you? If you don't, you will not get to letting go. Because in order to let go, you have to accept what actually is there. It is hands down the scariest thing that can happen to a human as far as I'm concerned. Someone pulls a gun on me and shoots me or threatens to, I don't know. Sure, I'm afraid, I want to live, I'll react, whatever. That's nothing compared to this. I've had weapons pulled on me. I've messed around quite a bit. I think I was close to being murdered twice. Both were very unpleasant experiences, but my mind actually helped me get through those. Your mind, when you put it under stress, it can do great things. It's that awareness module. So, okay, there's a threat. There's a guy with a gun. Okay, well, let's react. It's actually easier to do that than go through life trying to make sense of things. If you just have to react to a threat, you can shine. That's what we do. That's all hardwired. But voluntarily walking up to your death and accepting that all this is real and bigger than you. You're never going to understand it. You have no say in it. You can't control anything. That's the test. That was my most recent test. Probably not a final test, but that was my test. And it was probably a year of test after test after test until that final day when I was stripped of everything. And I came to standing up. And this whole world looked different, and it still does. The beauty I see in the things around me in nature, it's just a pleasure factor for me. It's all perfect, all the time. And sometimes it's so beautiful I just have to stop and just breathe. It's overwhelming how beautiful things are. And Eric's circling me as I'm standing there on the mat, and my body, my mind, and my spirit are dialed in. For the only time in my conscious adult life, there was some level of perfection in me. And Eric's walking around, and his voice is booming. There is only this. We have lost touch with the magic. It's all magic. And it is. And if you can accept that, then the mind has to get into the back seat. Because the mind doesn't know anything about magic. The mind is logic and reason and a lot of noise. But if you accept this state of things, everything gets in its right place. And you are alive. You are fully alive. And when that happens, you can die. I think the transition to death from that state, from the awareness of that reality, is a smoother transition. And I will set out to prove that when I die. I won't be able to report back on it probably, but I don't look forward to it. I don't want to, the more I love what is, the more I want to keep it going. That's the other thing about being obsessed with death. There's no morbidity. You're obsessed with life. It's a contradiction. And if you can't swallow contradictions, you're never going to get out of step one here. It's this perfection. You can only see it when you let go, which means you've let yourself die, which means you've accepted your death, which means you have no power here. It's all happening. There's nothing for you to fix. There is nothing to do. There is nowhere to go. I mean that literally and metaphysically. And if you get to it, then there's harmony. And you're zoomed out. And there's still chaos all around you in this world. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the world is. That's the drama. That's the game. That's the fun. Well, what can you do about it? You see something you want to fix? You see something you want to achieve? Whatever it is, go do it. There's nothing in the way. Once the mind's in the back seat, there is no obstacles for you to get what you want. So you see it manifest with money and success and loving relationships and whatever. Like, that's how it displays itself. So this isn't a path to how do I get rich? But yeah, if you take this path, along the way, you won't care about rich anymore. There will be moments when you can't even understand the concept of money anymore. But in the end, yes, success. That's your birthright. That's what you can have if you want it. Do you want it? It's the combo asking you, well, if you do, what are you going to do when I put you in this storm? What are you going to do when it counts? And you'll find out. You'll find out what you want. You'll find out what you're made of. Regardless of good and bad and want and don't want, who cares? It's not going to matter. It's going to be real. And you're going to accept it. Because it's peace. It's what we are entitled to for being alive. It's what the animals have when they're not being eaten or tortured by the elements. Maybe it's a brief moment. Maybe it's 50 years. Either way, it's invaluable. It's life-changing. It's the thing that puts the mind, body, and spirit into harmony.